Yama everyone, and welcome to NAIDOC 2020 First Nations Youth Panel hosted by Georges River Council. This panel is a great opportunity to hear from the voices of First Nations youth who are shaping our nation for the better. Today we'll be discussing important issues and topics that are shaping First Nations communities. My name is Georgia Jermish and I'm a proud Wara woman from the Gomeroi Nation. I'm a Georges River local and have been lucky enough to be born and raised on the beautiful lands of the Bidikal country. I'm a PhD student and researcher, researching how First Nations youth conceptualise wellbeing and the importance of giving First Nations youth voice and agency in research. Today I'm joined by two deadly women, Irene Higgins, who is a proud Wiradjuri woman, and my twin sister Rachel Dermish, who is a proud Welwen woman from the Gomeroi Nation. Welcome ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome. Before we commence our NAIDOC Youth Panel discussion, however, I would like to firstly acknowledge and pay my respects to the Bidikal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the beautiful lands we are standing on today. I would like to also extend my respects to other First Nations people who are present here today and other First Nations people who are watching this video too. Firstly, if you could, ladies, could please tell us about yourselves, who your mob is, and what do you do?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name's Irene Higgins. I'm a proud Wiradjuri woman. My mob is mostly from Cobar and I've got some from the Barona Mission. I'm a University of Sydney student studying law and science, majoring in psychology, and I'm currently in my 5th year. I'm also working at a small law firm called North Star Law, and I work mostly in historical institutional abuse, and a majority of our clients are Indigenous.
Oh wow, and can you tell us about like your role? Are you enjoying it? Kind of what does North Star Law do?
Yeah, so it's a personal injury law firm, and I initially got into personal injury law from the Career Trackers internship program, and made my way here, and I do legal research. So I do a lot of the like historical research. I've done lots of work with Aboriginal affairs, looking through old welfare records. And as an Indigenous woman, it's quite interesting and meaningful to me to be going through those records and trying to get compensation for people who, you know, have been taken from their homes or treated horribly just because of the colour of their skin.
Yeah, that's awesome kind of work that you're doing, eh? And Rach, who your mob is?
Yeah, so my name's Rachel. I'm a Welwen woman from the Gomeroi Nation, but was born and raised in Sydney. And I'm actually in my final semester of Law and Arts degree at the University of Sydney.
That's
so
awesome. Congratulations. Not too long.
Yeah, not too long to go. And I work currently at the Aboriginal Legal Service, and I sort of started there at the beginning of this year. And I'm absolutely loving it. So the Aboriginal Legal Service, for those who don't know, offer legal representation for Aboriginal people, and do a lot of work in the community, mostly in the areas of criminal, but also there's a care and protection team as well. And so not too long to go with uni, but sort of enjoying the final sort of few weeks and of university life, I guess.
Too deadly. Well, are you back at uni because of coronavirus?
So some classes are online. Students did have a choice to do some online classes, but I'm sort of at university a couple of days a week and do some evening family law classes, which has been really nice to see friends and familiar faces at uni and sort of keep socialising, despite, I guess, the impact of COVID this year. So
it's been a very difficult time for our mob and for everyone due to COVID, but it's NAIDOC week, and this year's theme is always was, always will be, and it recognises that our mob, First Nations people, continue to hold a connection and care for this country for over 65,000 years. For you both ladies, like, what does NAIDOC mean to you as young Aboriginal women? Irene?
I think in particular this theme has meant a lot to me this year. We've seen a lot of loss. We had Rio Tinto's atrocity during the Black Lives Matter movement, and recently for work I got to travel up to Dubbo and Burke and see the Darling River, and all of those things just really, they make you a little bit angry about everything that's been done to our land. Not just the Land of the Wiradjuri people, but all of the other mobs in this country who've been mistreated. And I think it's the kind of time where I'm really glad that we get to step back and reflect and have our NAIDOC week and think about that. We've got the birthing trees at the moment that are going,
Victoria.
yeah, and if they get destroyed, there's going to be so much more loss there.
Yeah.
And it's important that people can see how important that is.
Yeah, lots of cultural knowledge and connection and lost because of destruction of the ongoing colonisation and colonies that freshen towards our people and culture. Yeah. Rach, what does NAIDOC this year's theme mean to you?
I think it's a really important theme this year, and I also second what Irene, said about sort of it has definitely been a year of reflection. I think not just on us sort of reflecting, our mob reflecting, but also the rest of society reflecting on and understanding that our mob have been here for thousands of years, and we have cultural knowledge that has been passed down from generations upon generations, and it's amazing knowledge that really should be. We really should have discussions around this and protecting cultural sacred sites, but also the knowledge as well. And so it's definitely been a year where we can reflect on that. And I think a lot more people are becoming engaged in conversations around this, and still a lot of work needs to be done. But it's also really exciting when we do see, what's happened with the Black Lives Matter movement, to see also people getting involved in that, and a lot of allies as well, non-Indigenous allies, seeing more of that as well. Just is really exciting to see.
Definitely. And as First Nations people, we've had over 65,000 years of knowledge and expertise on how to care for country. That's what this theme reflects, our continual connection. And you may both agree that Australians can really, learn from our culture and our knowledge and our expertise.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of fires, over past years, going out of control.
Yeah.
We've got our own traditional cultural fire practices that, where our First Nations voices and knowledge is certainly the answer to a lot of issues, not just in our country but globally. A lot of First Nations people, Indigenous people across the globe, our knowledges are really important. And you were saying both how there's kind of this continuous oppression, not just on our knowledge but our cultural sites. As you're both aware of, we've got the highest deaths in custody, over 50% of youth in Australia, over 50% are Indigenous youth, represent the highest detention rate population. And as both First Nations young women and future lawyers, what do you think? What are your perspectives on and ways that we can stop this continuous oppression on our people, in particular with high deaths in custody in the justice system?
Well, when it comes to the justice system, I feel like it's really close to home, especially with the work that I'm doing now. It's about making people answerable. We've got clients who've been mistreated in institutions, and it's important that they can receive compensation, but that also moving forward, we protect people from that ever happening again. And the first step in doing that is making sure that the people we're placing are going to be doing the right things, that they are answerable, that their bosses are answerable, and that ultimately, way up high, the state is answerable. And it's very important that that chain of responsibility is kept intact.
Yeah, definitely, and there needs to be a form of education.
Yes, absolutely.
Cultural competency, a lot of police brutality, and people, like you're saying, that in these powerful decision-making roles, and even on a grassroots level, that are putting our people in jail and not giving them a voice. Yeah, Rach?
Definitely a lot more resources are needed, particularly for those, as Irene was saying, in custody. Healthcare is a huge major issue, and being able to enable people in custody to have access to those resources is another important thing that really attention should be given to that. And I guess another thing is, recently the ACT government was was in support of the raising the age of criminal responsibility from 10 to 14, and that's something that I believe personally, is something that we should really be considering, not just in New South Wales but also in other jurisdictions as well, because by sort of police having the power to arrest someone as young as 10 years old, for instance, just places children in juvenile detention centres, and unfortunately sets them up to not a very good life in terms of reoffending and then leading youth into imprisonment in jail prisons when they're older. So that's definitely something that we really need to have a hard think about, I think, because the powers of police to arrest someone and then for someone to be charged with an offence at a really young age is just awful when you think about that, because our children should be out doing the things that they want to achieving different goals, because I think really our Indigenous youth are the next generation of leaders.
Definitely.
And
well, absolutely. I mean, Indigenous youth represent over 50% of the Indigenous population, so we are ultimately the future leaders and change makers of this country. What is your vision of the future for First Nations people? What do you hope to see? I mean, we've got a lot to do.
Yes, yes. In the near future, a voice.
Yeah.
Uluru Statement of the Heart, I think a voice is incredibly important. If you think about it, if you're in a room with 100 people and 3 of those 100 people are suffering terribly, but they can't do anything about it because they're outnumbered. It's important that we have allies, and it's important that we have a voice in Parliament.
Definitely. What do you hope to see in the new future for our mob?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Irene said. The voice is just so important, and whilst there's been sort of criticism about it being a potential third chamber in Parliament, it is not, and so for obvious reasons. But just having that voice so that Indigenous people are consulted about laws that are going to affect them, it just makes sense that that's what we need. Because we really should be involved in the process of making laws in this country, because ultimately the law affects us.
Definitely.
And if you look at that, it's just definitely important. But I guess mainly the vision for youth is just to succeed. I feel like we really are the next generation of leaders, and it's really exciting to even now see the amount of Indigenous businesses that are out there. All of we've got career trackers, different professionals, Indigenous professionals in this whole range of different areas, and Indigenous youth are really smashing it. So
Definitely. Seeing more of our youth thrive and flourish, and hopefully one day we'll see First Nations Prime Minister of this country. And no, you're absolutely right, Rach. For so long, our people have been, this narrative has defined us through a deficit kind of narrative.
Yeah.
And we are seeing more of our youth thrive and flourish. And like you both said, at the end of the day, it's our voice that's important. And importantly, our sovereignty has never been ceded. We had our own laws, languages, kinship systems. And like you're saying, that's what the Uluru Statement from the Heart reflects. For Australians start listening to us, and for us to be able, First Nations people to be able to have a voice and just make decisions. Because at the end of the day, we're the experts. We understand what we need. Yeah. And I guess the next final question is, how do you think Australians can uplift and empower the voice of our mob? What can they do? Uluru Statement from the Heart, supporting that is probably one thing they can do. What do you...
Yeah, I absolutely think that's the first step. From especially coming from a legal background. Read it and really take the time to let those words sink in. So many people's thoughts, so many communities came together to write that piece. I think even as somebody who's non-Indigenous, it really just speaks volumes. I think I've noticed this year, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot more curiosity, and I really want to foster that. Ask questions, and be understanding and be empathetic, and understand that some people have lived very, very different lives to you, and that their lives are important too, and that they need you as an ally, because we can't do this alone.
No, absolutely. And right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's walking hand in hand with each other for to achieve a better future. So it's I think it's about listening, to, as you were saying, Irene, and also whether it's the smallest things, whether it's at work and it's taking part in NAIDOC events and attending talks, being allies. If your work has an event which has maybe a speaker, prominent community member talking, you could attend that. Being, as Irene was saying, being curious about and learning about an Aboriginal culture, but also from Aboriginal people directly, and I guess maybe for people not assuming that everyone is the same, because there's we have so many different mobs around the country, and each with distinct laws, language, and cultural knowledge as well. And so definitely keeping an open mind about these things, but also supporting us on the things that really matter, and that right now is recognition, and also speaking up about inequalities that still occur.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. It's been so lovely yarning. As you both said, there's a lot that Australians and the wider community can do to support First Nations people, and ultimately is to listen to our voice and research, educate yourself on issues, because our culture is so beautiful, and all Australians, if you call yourself Australian, this is your culture you should be proud of as well. No, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Irene and Rachel.
Thank you.